We are live. We are live. Joe Rogan has called himself an idiot and goes completely unhinged on my new favorite podcast, the Jesse Michaels podcast. He goes off the deep end. He says that he believes he may have been visited by aliens in a dream. He implies that it was unlike any other dream he's had and that aliens had come to visit him. We're going to get into all that. He describes the aliens, he describes the way that they were communicating with him. It gets nuts, guys. We're going to get weird tonight. All right, guys. I'm your host. My name is King David MMA. I'm a professional MMA champion, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I coach at Extreme Couture, the best gym on the planet. And if you guys are familiar with UFO lore, with alien lore, with government lore, there's one secret in the government and one secret only that's above all other secrets that cannot be openly discussed. We're going to get into all that. I told you we're going to get weird, guys. We're going to get very freaking weird. I'm on this tangent about intelligent thought forms. And yeah, we're also going to get into two different theories on why it seems that UFO disclosure is coming right now. There are two very powerful, very conflicting themes happening. People are taking sides. We're going to get into all that. One of them is an arms race with China, and one is that people believe that the government is trying to lock everybody down with alien information. We're going to get into both of those potentials. Plus, we're also going to get into some other spooky things. So, if you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let me get my thing set up over here so we can get the chat cracking like butt cheeks. All right, guys, we got it all going. And before we begin, first things first, shout out to Fight Circus. All right, home of the freak show fights. Make sure you follow Fight Circus on Instagram. You like crazy, you like weird. Fight Circus will get crazy and get weird with you guys. So, anyways, guys, let's get right into it. Okay, so from the top, Joe Rogan calls himself an idiot. He says he's a professional fool. And then he goes on to say that he believes he had a very special dream and implies that actual aliens had visited him in the dream. He said the aliens were tall, slender, white humanoids, and they were holding back reptilian, like almost alligators through what he described as kind of like a membraney, like water surface, and that the aliens kept scaring him, like right, and that I know it sounds wild, but there's a point to what I'm bringing up because we're going to get deep into it, and we're going to get very, very, very nuanced. So if you guys are into weird UFO shit, today is your day. Okay, so he said that the aliens in his dream were going back and forth between scaring him and then like comforting him, like, oh, we're scaring, no, we're just playing, we're scaring you, oh, we're playing, we're scaring you, oh, we're playing, right? So they were going back and forth, and he says that this dream was tactile, like he could feel it, like it was real. And he said it was extremely vivid, and how he knows it's different than any other dream he's had is he's a very, very easy and a very heavy sleeper. And after this dream, he could not go back to sleep. So he feels this dream is very different. And if you guys have not seen Joe Rogan on the Jesse Michaels podcast, I'm 47 minutes into it right now. Dude, I'm going to watch this freaking thing like 5 times. There's so much crazy shit in there. They're talking about chambers going down like miles underneath the pyramids, and the chambers have coils on them. And then in one corridor, there's a 40-meter long metal object that people are claiming is a spaceship or a UFO of some sort. It gets fucking crazy. Yeah, they talk about living to 30,000 years old. They talk like they go all over the place. Okay, and I'm into that, right? So that's my cup of tea, so to say. Like if it were up to me, I would hang out with my girlfriend in the backyard and like meditate, and then like come inside and then put on like fucking UFO documentaries, and then, watch that and then go train. That would be like, that's a great day for me. So, and if you guys are familiar with UFO lore, you know the one thing that you cannot discuss in the government is aliens. If you are a FAA pilot, like if you are flying a jet, you cannot say, like if you're flying an F-16, you can't say, hey, there's a spaceship outside of my jet. You will get like court-martialed. You can't bring it up. You can't talk to anybody about it. But now they're trying to disclose that UFOs are real. In fact, they're saying there's 5 to 6 locations under the ocean that are very deep, that's where a lot of these, they call them USOs, under unidentified submersive or submersible objects, that these are like UFOs but underneath the water, and they're all coming from 5 locations around the planet, right? And then furthermore, that okay, so when you start getting into it, it's not just space aliens, okay? It's also interdimensional beings as one theory of what this phenomenon might be. So the other theory is also that this is humans from the future coming back, right? So now let's list them out to get a full spectrum of what might be happening. So for a long time, the United States government has denied that there are UFOs. They denied that there was an Area 51. Bob Lazar said he worked at S4, which is a subsegment of Area 51. And until Obama, every president before that, every government official denied the existence of Area 51, right? And so all these years, people were saying that Bob Lazar was crazy. And then under Obama, they started to reclassify some stuff with Area 51, and it comes out that it's an actual base, right? And so then his story becomes more and more valid. And over time, Bob Lazar's story starts to flesh out with all these details that people said were untrue or couldn't be proven, and then later keep getting proven and proven and proven. So over time, his story gets more and more and more legitimate. And so when he dropped this in like the 80s or the 90s, people kind of dismissed it as a crazy UFO guy, right? Because that's what they'll do, is they'll label you kooky. And so he got labeled kooky. And then now, in hindsight, everything the dude said has started to come true as we get more and more information. So for instance, one thing that he said was there was like you would scan your hand to get into different areas of the base. And people were like, that technology doesn't even exist. Well, guess what? Now it's been revealed that at Area 51, that's actually how people go from facility, from like one door to a next doors. They have hand scanners, right? And so like, how would he have known that 30, 40 years ago? Like, and now it's all coming out. Okay, so if that's not crazy enough, he claims that he took people to Area 51, and then there's people that have verified this, that they saw actual flying saucers being tested by the United States government, okay? And so as all this is proving to be more and more in alignment with factual accuracy, because more and more information is coming out, there's also a push for disclosure. So there's guys who are very controversial, like Dr. Stephen Greer, who, and if you get balls deep into the UFO situation, everybody's calling they're all going at each other, calling each other misinformant, like agents, right? So they're all ops. And so people have mixed feelings on Dr. Stephen Greer, right? But he's pushing for disclosure. And there's an entire YouTube channel called Serious Disclosure, which is he's interviewed hundreds of high-level government, high-level FAA, high-level pilots, like serious people who are all saying, I know what I saw. I saw freaking UFOs. Nothing we have can move like that. Right. And then people will counter back, well, if the laws of physics are accurate, which we believe they are, then there's no way that someone could be in a little spaceship like that and take that amount of G forces. Then people are saying that's assuming that the laws of physics that we operate under are the same laws of physics that they operate under, and that there's a they, and that these people, that the people in the spacecraft, the aliens, one, that it's even a spacecraft, it could be an interdimensional, portal shifter, right? Or it's a drone, or the gray aliens are androids, right? They appear to be biological, but they're computer based, right? So then they don't have to be as affected as a human being would by, let's say, G-forces, or that they have a bubble around them that shifts space-time so they're not affected by the physics outside of the bubble, and they have their own independent physics in the bubble. And then my favorite thought experiment of all of this, right, is like, okay, imagine an ant. And an ant, like a little ant, right, with a brain this big, right? Like that big, that like a little ant brain. An ant brain, if it met a cat, it couldn't process what a cat is, right? Like it would just be like large shadow coming towards me, go underground. And it wouldn't even say that. It would just non-verbally like be cued by its, you know, insect consciousness to like just go underground and avoid the shadow, which could be danger. It wouldn't even have a concept of what a cat actually is, right? And so if we were to take that cat and try and teach that cat French, that cat, the house cat, cannot learn French. And if we were to, I know, I told you we're getting weird, guys. I told you we're getting weird, okay? So if you're here for it, we're going to get even weirder, all right? Okay, so if we cannot teach that cat French, let alone teach the cat French, and then teach that cat astrophysics in French with like complex mathematical calculations, and then have that French speaking cat do astrophysics, like high level mathematics in French. But a human can do that, right? So the same way that a ant cannot process a cat and a cat cannot process a human, right? Because it's got no ability to even understand human capabilities, right? Why are we believing that any form of alien would be anything like what we're able to process? So if something were 1,000 times smarter than a human, what it's capable of, what its essence is, it could be some other thing that we can't even think of. Like a cat can't think of a human. It can't think of learning French, and then it can't even think of the concept of that. Like the cat's not going like, I know I can't learn French. I know I can't learn astrophysics. It doesn't even have a reference for what that would eat. It just meows and eats in like chases birds and mice, you know? And so while some people will say that a cat can meow and another cat can meow, and that it's like some form of very, very extremely primitive language between the two of them, well, it's still not fucking the beautiful language of France. It's not a romance language. You know what I'm saying? It's not the language of math. It's not astrophysics. Okay. And so, the same way that it can't even conceive of what a human is capable of, that people would speculate we cannot possibly conceive of what an alien or an interdimensional traveler or a time traveler could possibly be. So, that leads me into what I've been on as of late, which is outside of the scope of aliens time traveling. And in a previous live, I talked about if there was a 2D plane on which intelligent 2D people existed. And so the plane's like this, and we were 3D people, and we put our fingers through the plane. These fingers wouldn't appear as fingers because fingers are three-dimensional. They would appear as circles in the plane, and they would look disconnected, right? So the same way we might see a UFO here, boom, and then it's here, that doesn't mean that it traveled in our understanding of the universe from here to here. It might be some form of being outside of our dimensional understanding that can just move things, or can be in two places and like this one goes in that one. Like there's all kinds of shit that could be happening. And that's shit that we can speculate about. That's not even things that are outside of our ability to speculate upon, because we can't conceive of them, because they're orders of magnitude more complex than we're able to process. So one would say, well, what could that lead to? Well, that could lead to something like there. I've seen them spelled out, and I believe they're pronounced egregores, right, or pendulums. So if you've ever read the book Reality Transurfing, it's by a Russian physicist, and it's translated into English, and it talks about a lot of fucking crazy concepts. And one of them is intelligent thought forms, which have been talked about throughout history, oftentimes referred to as egregores. Right. I told you guys, if you're into fucking weird shit, I'm getting off the fucking deep end, okay? Or am I? Or am I talking about base reality, guys? Am I talking about the base reality, like what's really happening, or am I off the deep end? You know, you're allowed to feel either way, right? So imagine an intelligent thought form, right? That charges itself and grows. It's invisible, but it's a thought form. And the more energy that's directed to it by, let's say, humans, as an example, it it grows and gets more power. So one could speculate that like anything like a political party has a thought form above it in a way, like an umbrella above it, and anyone who's giving energy to that thought form is then elevated within that physical community as a more and more relevant person to the thought form, the pendulum. And so the pendulum will help elevate people who feed the pendulum. But there's another pendulum over here, exactly counterbalancing this pendulum that and in this example, it's the other political party, right? And people get elevated in that thought form or elevated in that social structure because they feed that thought form, right? And now, if you try and go against that, then you start to cause issues because you are propped up by the societal structure that is feeding the thought form, right? Okay, so, anyways, so who's to say that aliens aren't coming here in there's like invisible things that invisible to us that we can't see. There could be aliens everywhere right now that we just can't process. There could be thought forms that we can't process. There could be some form of intelligent being outside our dimension, like the same way that the fingers go into the 2D space, right? The 3D form goes into the 2D space. You get what I'm saying? They could be popping in and out, right? And that might be like our dimension of time. They're outside of our dimension of time, so they could be here then there, right? And so we call this distance, but distance is point to point over time, right? But if they were outside of time, right? So time is existing. They could just take this thing from here and put it here, right? Without the time having to expire. Okay. So as fucking freaky as this is what I do when I'm like driving to the gym. I get on some weird shit. Okay. Let me read the chat real quick. We got Arpon the Dawn in the chat. Can aliens shapeshift? Is Elon an alien? Oh, okay. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. Right. And so as we're going through the potential theories on what these aliens could be or could be associated with, or are they from outer space? Are they operating with a force field bubble around them that bends space-time? Are they operating from another dimension? Some people would say that they are operating from, and we're not going to get into this right now. Some people say that there's an ice wall and that the shape of the earth is different than what everyone's told and that they could be coming from there. There's other people saying that the earth is hollow and they could be like, and I'm not saying any of that, right? What I'm just saying is these are all theories that are out there. Okay. Theories, guys. And so one could speculate that in addition to these things being things that we can't even conceive of, the same way that the cat can't conceive of humans doing advanced mathematics, right? They could be popping in and out, or they could be here at all times, or they could be very unobservable to us. Because when we talk about an intelligent thought form, right? What are we? Right? So one would speculate that an intelligent thought form is like let's say, just for the sake of this discussion, conscious ball of energy, right? A conscious energy. And consciousness, but it's like energy. It's not physical. But what we perceive as physical as humans isn't even physical, right? So like I'm not really here, guys. Right? I perceive that I'm here because I have five senses. But this is not the full representation of me in my existence. This is the representation of me filtered through my five senses, the same way that you're filtered through your five senses. I'm filtered through yours, you're filtered through mine. We believe we're physical because we have a sensation called touch, right? But when we really break it down to subatomic particles, we're going to get off the deep end now. We're going to get off the deep end. Subatomic particles are just vibrations in energy. So then what would that be, right? On one level, we're fucking conscious energy that believes that we're physical because we're having a physical experience through five senses. But that's the only reason it appears physical. Because some form or some alien or some person, humanoid thing or some spiritual thing outside of our dimension could perceive us differently. And our ability to not be able to perceive them, we might not be able to even perceive what we are. Because we're limited by our five senses and we're going around operating. So imagine a game, right? And we're playing a game. Well, the first rule of the game is to know the rules of the game and not assume we know the rules of the game. So there might be rules of the game that we're not even perceptive of, right? So if we are making an argument on anything, right, like gravity is real or whatever, like we have to realize that there are things that we don't know that we don't know. So the same way the cat doesn't know that it doesn't know French, but a human can know that I know this cat doesn't speak French. The cat does not know that it doesn't speak French. We also might not know what we actually are because we're processed through our five senses. So our five senses that are allowing us to process might be the exact thing that is preventing us from processing ourselves or anything else properly. Because we're only getting a very, very limited piece of the spectrum, right? Like even the light spectrum. We can't visibly perceive ultraviolet light. We have a very limited spectrum, which we can see with our eyes. And then there's tools that we can use, and then we have a different look, but that's all around us at all times. Let me check the chat before I go too deep, because we're going to go even deeper. Okay, very articulate and fun. Alien fire emoji. Cat doing math is it. Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't believe that a cat can do complex math, but I do enjoy the thought of a French-speaking cat doing complex math. Okay, so like I just think that's a fun thought. Like, oh, wee, a cat. You know what I mean? Meow, meow. Maybe painting a picture and talking about, complex math. But anyways, all right, so now the same way that we can, from one lens, perceive ourselves as conscious energy fields, right? We can also imagine that there's conscious energy fields that are unobservable to us through our five senses because our five senses are finite. They're five, right? But there might be other things out there. And so I I got to a crossroads in my life. And I had met two different types of people. One type of person was, let's say, spiritual, and one type of person was not spiritual. And as you go down the road of spirituality, you come across something called the law of attraction. And I met a guy who was making $10 million a year. And I was broke. Like I wouldn't go eat a Chipotle burrito because I thought at the time it was $7 for a burrito. I thought I was like, never. $7 for a burrito, never. Right? That's how broke I was, right? Out of my mind, bro. Right? Like again, unable to process that my thinking was broken. So I had to get to a point where I could be reflective enough to realize that that's like $7 for a burrito. It's arbitrary. Money is imaginary. It's just data points in a fucking database somewhere, right? There's not even like anything physical backing it up. It's literally just a computer program, and a computer program is essentially ones and zeros, right? So these digits that we see are actually, anyways, right? So that's how crazy my thinking was at the time, right? And I was with my dear friend Ulysses Gomez. And we were at a grappling tournament because we got sponsored to go out to New Jersey and compete as blue belts. And, there was a multi-million-dollar gym owner there. And, Ulysses was like, hey, man, let's get a book recommendation. I said, that's a great idea, bro. So we went over to this multi-millionaire gym owner. He said, recommend us a book. And he said, I'm going to recommend you one book. I said, okay. He said, Think and Grow Rich. And we go, okay, cool. Anything else? He goes, listen, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Read Think and Grow Rich. And do not stop reading Think and Grow Rich until you've mastered Think and Grow Rich. And in Think and Grow Rich, they tell you, and so like that's one lesson, right? Because he's like, people will read Think and Grow Rich, say, I got it. They don't have the results. And then they ask for another recommendation. And he's like, don't even ask for anything else until you've implemented this. But that's another subject for another time. So with the Think and Grow Rich text, it essentially says that thoughts are things and you become what you think about, and you can attract things into your life based on your thoughts and your feelings. And a lot of people will say that's crazy hippie bullshit. Now, here's where I came to the crossroads. I have this dude worth $10 million. I've got another mentor who's made more mentors. I mean, he's made more millionaires than anybody in documented history. Every single multimillionaire, millionaire, decamillionaire, everybody I knew that had the success that I was looking for believed in Think and Grow Rich or the law of attraction or both. Every single person who did not believe in Think and Grow Rich that I was encountering did not have the results I wanted. So while I was trying to make a determination of which of these two paths should I pursue, I looked at the results. I want these results. These people all agree. I do not want these results. These people all disagree. So by default, I will agree to this that I don't even know about, because every single person that agrees with this that I have encountered has these results. And every single person that doesn't have the results is the people that disagree. Every disagreeer doesn't have the results. So what would you choose? So I chose to agree. So anyways, that's how we get this good vibes only thing back here, because I like a vibe, right? So that's a long way of saying thoughts become things, feelings attract into your physical reality, what your experience will be. And while we are on the very bizarre, very weird, very unusual topic of spirituality, perception, energy, consciousness, subatomic particles, they've also done a study that says subatomic particles are not local. And what that means is that the same way a video game renders, our reality from this experiment is also rendering. So there is a light off to this side of me, but when I'm looking at you, this light doesn't exist until I look over at the light, right? So I'm talking about the physical being that it's on, right? And so people would say, and you're like, but I see the light on your face. That's because you're observing it, right? So it turned into a photon when it was being observed by you and by me seeing myself. But the actual physical light structure that's emanating the photons, the light bulb, doesn't exist until I look at it. So it's still in waveform. And they've done crazy experiments on this. They've even done experiments that change what the result is afterwards by observing after, right? So like not just observing pre-experiment and then the observation changes the result. They can then backwards change the result by observing after. So even particles, people are speculating, aren't really there. They're fucking waves. You get what I'm saying? So, like, when someone is telling me that aliens couldn't exist because the human body that we have can't handle the G forces, I would speculate that maybe they are looking at things through a frame of their own understanding, and they are not seeing what's outside of the frame of their own understanding. They don't know what they don't know, right? So, anyways, guys, that's my story on law of attraction. That's my story on Joe Rogan's crazy ass podcast. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I'm excited. I'm going to listen to that thing. And so, yeah, dude. So that's my new favorite podcast. Let me get the name of it again. The Jesse Michaels podcast. Joe did call himself an idiot. So nobody can claim that I'm clickbaiting with the title, right? Of the thumbnail that I made, which I may change later. So if you're at this point in the video and it's a different thumbnail, well, guess what? I changed it, motherfucker. Right. But, anyways, so I'm testing new things out on the channel, guys. So shout out to the real ones that popped in the chat. Shout out to you guys. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody subscribing. And if you guys like getting weird, well, then maybe we run this video the fuck up. And then I'm like, okay, let's talk more weird shit because I'm super into it. Anyways, I hope you're having a good night. And I go live every day. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.